Well, it depends. It doesn't necessarily ever feel like any one particular thing. In my case, most of the time, I'm really keen to be discharged. So it always feels like an incredible release from a place which has been very confining and very, well, containing in both a good and a bad way. So I'm one of those people that's always wanting to be discharged, and it's never come soon enough. So yes, in my last admission and then discharge, I received a booklet, and it was about preparing me and for the process of discharge. And I've never had anything like that before. And it was something that was kind of put on my bed prior to a ward round. So it very much felt like it was my document. And then I was meant to work through it with a member of staff who had particular kind of was particularly in charge of discharge processes. And we didn't have a chance to work through it completely, but we worked through it for about half an hour together. And it was really helpful, especially to talk about the things that I was anxious about. And also then to focus on the things which were going to be good and positive about my discharge, but also some of the practicalities around discharge, which in my case might involve being able to go through my emails or looking at post and opening that post and not feeling intimidated by the pile of stuff that's waiting for me. So that was really, really helpful. So I think one of the most difficult things are when ward rounds happen quite suddenly, so that you feel that they've been sprung on you and you haven't had either a chance to prepare for the ward round or have any family member or supporter there in the ward round. And then discharge planning can start being talked about in that ward round, but I feel very, very alone in that meeting, and I haven't got anyone there to talk through, I suppose, my reality. So it becomes a process that doesn't feel very individual. It feels just like a process. No, on the whole not. No.
Okay.
No. Although in the last admission I had, one of the things that did happen after some of the ward rounds was that I was invited into a room with a member of staff who would then ask me how I'd found that ward round. And when that was coming up to discharge, she would ask me, I think quite often it was a head nurse on the ward, she would ask me how I was feeling about discharge and whether I felt like it was coming at the right time. And that was extremely helpful. So then I felt like I had a space which was outside the ward round to reflect on how it had been and also to give back my feedback. Well, in the event, there wasn't a lot of time.
Right.
So although it was in the booklet, and I appreciated seeing a whole page on, the fact that you might have anxieties and worries, which could be emotional and social and practical, I didn't actually get time to talk through those. And there was an assumption made that because I'm in a good marriage and I get on well with my family and that discharge would be relatively fine for me, that it would be a smooth process. And I wish that assumption hadn't been made.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to say that having a gradual discharge is very important.
Yeah.
So having a kind of graduated amount of time where you can spend time, and it might start as a day at home, and then it might work up to 2 or 3 days, and then longer, 4 or 5 days. So I think having a gradual process of discharge, a kind of transitional approach to it, is really, really important. And I don't know if that happens often enough. I think there's a lot of fear about the fact that you might go back and find that your bed's been taken, or that you've just been discharged by stealth, if you like, as opposed to feeling held in the process. It helps with reorientation back into your life, because you become really not just disorientated, you become refocused on the ward life and your friends on the ward, and you become quite institutionalized after a relatively short period of time. But for me, I've been, the last admission I was in for 8.5 weeks. So my reality becomes the ward, and I forget what it's like to be at home. So it helps to reorientate to my home life and to some of the stresses and strains of home life.
Yeah.
Some of the real kind of issues that you have to make tea for more than just one person, or that you have to maybe load a dishwasher, or, even cook, or, all those practicalities.